Free flight's the oldest kind of model airplane competition. The idea is to do with how long the airplane stays up in the air. We've got people from probably 15 or 16 different countries.
I'm from Australia, actually Brisbane, but I do think that this is probably one of the best flying fields in the world. Ready? It's a good one.
Malcolm Campbell says this dusty spot, 40 miles northwest of Bakersfield, is the perfect place for their annual World Championship competition. But as he and his other model aircraft aficionados discovered, it's also a place that could potentially severely threaten their health. The field is filled with the fungal spores that cause valley fever.
Nice little walk in the park. I came here first in 2011. It was green and lovely. But then we turned up in 2012 and it was quite dusty.
Malcolm flew his model plane and took photos of the competition. 3 weeks later, the symptoms hit.
So it was shivers, shakes, coughs, really awful feeling, high temperatures, and sore lungs.
Malcolm had caught valley fever, technically known as coccidiomycosis, named after the spores Malcolm inhaled while in Lost Hills. California and Arizona are the primary states where the fungus Coccidioides is found. The fungus grows when the soil is wet and breaks apart in dry conditions. The microscopic spores blow around in the dust.
And if you breathe the wrong cupful of air, it can impact in your lung and set up housekeeping, and it changes into a little golf ball looking affair, and that thing grows like crazy.
It's estimated that 150,000 people in the U.S. get valley fever, and nearly 200 people will die from it each year. Reported cases have skyrocketed 700% since 1998. Surprisingly, experts say 60% of people infected with valley fever won't ever know they had it. About 40% end up with flu-like symptoms like Malcolm. People from areas outside the endemic regions are particularly susceptible.
So you might say, well, it's kind of similar to other kinds of pneumonia. But it is a particularly difficult kind of pneumonia because it leaves the person exhausted, fatigued, for weeks at a time. The amount of time lost to work and to school from somebody who has this is much more prolonged than somebody who had a typical case of bacterial pneumonia.
It took me a good 6 months to feel reasonable afterwards. They did x-rays and they found a shadow there, and it turned out to be what's called a granuloma. And the granuloma is just a calcified lump about half an inch in diameter.
Unless his immune system gets compromised, he'll likely never have symptoms again. But there is no cure. That ball of fungus spherules will be in his lung forever.
There were 4 Americans in New Zealand at the competition, and they said, "Oh, you've got valley fever." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so. It just feels like the flu." And I went back to Australia and they said, "Yeah, you've had the flu, we'll give you some antibiotics."
Malcolm's friends were correct, and his doctors were wrong. It highlights the mystery and misdiagnosis of valley fever, a little-known disease with symptoms that appear to be better-known ailments, like bacterial pneumonia, tuberculosis, the common flu, and even cancer.
I felt really weak, and I couldn't even step on one foot.
This is so hard and curvy.
9-year-old Emily Garaspi's brush with valley fever in 2012 began with a diagnosis of bacterial pneumonia.
It was the very first weekend of May, and she woke up from her sleep just not feeling good. And she described it as her stomach not feeling well. And then she was just really tired that weekend and that whole week. And she had a cough that wouldn't go away. Valley fever is very common around here. And I knew that with her fatigue, with the cough, with the rash, that we probably were looking at valley fever. But no doctor would say that.